Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today on Masechtas Taanit daf Yud Tes. We're going to begin on Yud Ches Amud Beis by the new parak, new Mishnah. Seder Taaniyos Elu. When it comes to the fasts that we were mentioning in the previous chapters, Ha'omer b'Ravi Rishayna. It's regarding the first rainfall. The Gemara is going to explain exactly how to read this piece. Avot Tzmachim, when it comes to things that sprout out, Shishinu, that change its normal course, Masrin Alehin Miyad, then we will start crying out immediately to Hashem. As opposed to if it's just not raining for the first Revi'ah, so then we're not going to necessarily jump all the way into the most strict forms of fasting. Again, the Gemara is going to discuss this. Let's say the rain just stopped. Being Geshem Geshem Arbaim Yoim for 40 days. So also we start davening and crying out to Hashem immediately. Because this is certainly a makkah which is going to potentially lead to some form of a food shortage. Yardlet Smachim Avalo Yardel Elon Elon Vlot Smachim. Let's say, as we know, sometimes light rains could affect certain things, which don't affect positively others. Harder, stronger rains also benefit other things. The Gemara is going to discuss which one is which. So sometimes the rain is good for tzmachim, for things that sprout, but not for trees not for tzmachim. Lezeh, sometimes it's good enough for rain for both. However, not enough to fill up our pits on cisterns. Again, we still need that rain. So too, if let's say you have a city that it just didn't rain in that city, that it rained upon one city, and it didn't rain on the other city, so as it's brought down in Sefer Amos, that is considered to be a klala, that's a curse. The fact that it didn't rain, even though it did rain, but since it didn't rain in that particular city, that's obviously a problem. As we continue to Yud Testament Aleph. Oisa so that particular city, Misana, the person should fast, Umasras, V'chol and everyone around it, Misanos V'loi Masrios. So there is stages, because the city itself, they should blow shofar, they should fast, they should do everything. However, all the other cities around it, all they need to do is just fast. Rabbi Kiva Omer Masriyos lo Masanos. What they should do is they should be Masriyos. Again, it sounds like the language of Trua, but they will not have to fast. V'chein ir sheyeshma dever, of let's say there's some type of a plague in a particular city, mapoilas, walls crumbled down, there was some type of, let's say, an earthquake. So Osa Ir Misano Masras. So that city has to do everything. So again, if you're a surrounding area, you do have to show something, but not to the same level as the city that was directly affected. So Ezu Dever, what is a plague? Let's say there's 500 people in that city, and 3 people died, one after the other, on 3 consecutive days. Less than that, question is why the Gemara Mishnah has to say this, but less than that is not a dever. Al elu masriyan. So in all of these we cry out and blow shofar, b'chol makom, in all places. Says the Gemara, the Mishnah, al hishidafoin, by wind blasts, al hirakoin, when it comes to vegetation being destroyed, ve'al ha'arbe, ve'al chasil, these locusts and grasshoppers which are consuming all of our vegetation, ve'al chayara, and wild animals coming, ve'al cherev, and the sword. In other words, they have armies coming to attack us. Masrin aleha mene shehi maka mahalechas. This is considered to be a moving makkah, because all these different things, you can say, it's happening over there, we're fine. The reality is, it could move easily to your direction. Masa is the story Sheder Zakanim Yerushalayim La'Rehem, that the Zakanim they went down to their cities. V'gazur Taanit al shenira kimoli pitanur, that they accepted upon themselves a fast, kimoli pitanur, says Rashi, sheniru uvo be'ir, and they came into the city, to that of an oven. Shidafain be'ashkelin. Okay. The Gemara is going to discuss this. Gozru Taanit al she'achlu ze'evim shnei tinaikas be'ever hayarden. There are these two wolves that consumed a baby in this area. Rabbi Yosi Omer loy al she'achlu el al sheniru. Not that they ate a child, which of course would be devastating. The fact that this animal was found. Now, most animals are scared of people. So, and the reason why is because we are elevated above the animal kingdom. However, if animals are lurking around, it shows that they are not afraid of us, which obviously shows a lack of our commitment. We're more like animals, and therefore they feel that we're no better. And therefore it's dangerous, obviously, that they're around. Al elu masriin b'Shabbos. On the following, we'll cry out on Shabbos. And now Rashi finally says, what's masriin? Ba'anenu. That we say anenu. Okay. So what does this mean? And the Gemara, if you recall, there was a machlokas, was masriin. Is it shofar for sure? Is it also anenu? And this is actually a raya that it must be masriin, cannot be referring to tekiyas, because they're not going to blow shofar on Shabbos. So masriin b'Shabbos, we say anenu al ir shekifu and nachrim. If you have a city which is being surrounded by our enemy neighbors, our non-Jewish neighbors, o nahar, if there's a river flowing through the sea, through the city and destroying it, val svina hamitarefes bayam, you have a ship that's about to sink. Rabbi Yosi Omer le'ezra v'lotzaka. What we can do is Ezra v'lotzaka. We're not going to be allowed to actually scream out, but Ezra, we can ask for help. Shema timayni Omer af al dever v'lohadu chachamim. That we can also do this on Shabbos when it comes to dever, this plague, but the chacham disagreed. Al kol tzar shlo tavel at tzibor. When it comes to any issue, let it not happen to the tzibor masriin alehin, then we're masriin. Chutz miroiv geshamim, excluding when there's too much rain. When it's too much of a good thing, that much we don't do. And now we have perhaps one of the most famous Gemaras in this Masechta, perhaps almost in Shas. The Gemara's going to say this again. Masa shomer lo lechoni hamagol, Choni the circle maker. Hispalil davin shir de geshamim, let the rain fall. Amalehem su, go out ve'echnisa tenur psachim, go out and bring in your ovens. Bishil shlo yimoiku, because I don't want them to get ruined. It says Rashi Shem b'chatzeros, they were in the courtyards. Bishil cheres hain, they were made out of earthenware. It's going to pour. I'm going to daven, and it's going to rain immediately. So get them out of the rain. Hispalil, he daven v'lo yardu geshamim. It didn't rain. So what did he do? Og uga, he made a circle. The Yoma b'tocha, and he stood in it. Yerma fana banishom. Banecha somu panehim olai. Your children are relying on me. Shani ben bias lefanecha, like a ben bias to you. Hashem nishma ani b'shimcha. Hagadol sheni zoz mikan ach terachim al banecha. I will not leave the circle until you have compassion on your children. Hiskil geshamim minatfin. So it started to just drip, because Hashem wanted him to be free from his oath, so he could leave the circle. But he really didn't want it to rain too much. I didn't ask for this. I want to fill up these pits. So it came on like a fury, a massive storm. I didn't ask for this either, Hashem. El gishmi ratzain, bracha nadava. I want rain which is blessing and nice, calm waters. Yardu kitikunan. It went properly. Chiatzi yisrael Yerushalayim har bayis, until the people went from Yerushalayim to the har bayis, which is at a higher level. Because of all the rain. Just like we asked you, that please ask Hashem that it should come down Kach ispalel sheyelchu lahen. Let it also stop. Let the rain no longer be. Sarm lahem s'u go out and see. In nimches even hatoinin. Go and check out this particular rock. Says Rashi, even to'onin ha'is Yerushalayim. There was a stone in Yerushalayim. V'kol mi she'avda lo yaveda. Anyone who lost an object, that's where they would go. So that's called the Even Hatayin. So go to that place. So Shachu Shimon Shetach. So Shimon Shetach heard about this, and he said, as you can see on the side, in the third parak in Brachos, Daf Yotes, this is one of the places that really he should be put into Cherem. He should be excommunicated if it wasn't for you, Chani Hamagel. Hashem will still do what you want. Just like a child who misbehaves to the father. But the father still loves his child. Okay. And then this parentheses Mishnah, of course it's also a Mishnah. Let's say a person was fasting, it rained. So it was before sunrise that it started raining. So yashlimu. So at that point, it's not necessary for you to have to complete your fast. Let's say that it only started raining after sunrise. So yashlimu, you have to complete your fast. It's not by nates, but rather it's totally on chatzos. Koinim chatzos lo yashlimu. Le'achar chatzos yashlimu. Master shigavers Taanit belud. Yodel hem geshamim. Koidim chatzos. It started raining before chatzos. Amol Rav Tarfon subi ilchu shu v'yasu yomtiv. So go and eat and relax and enjoy your joy. Yotz v'och v'shos v'yasu yomtiv. Uva bin harboyim v'kar halal gadol. And they said halal gadol to praise Hashem. So we see from this a Masa Shahaya that the time actually is chatzos and not netzachama. Okay. Another very long Mishnah, so now let's see the Gemara on this. Seder Taanit Ha'elu, so now we're going to dissect every piece of this Gemara, of this Mishnah. Seder Taanit Ha'elu Ha'omer B'Ravi Rishayna. So it says in the Mishnah that this is referring to the first rainfall. Raminhi, for the Gemara, Ravi Rishayna V'Shnei L'Shayil. When it comes to the rain of the first and the second, is when you ask. Shlishis is L'sanis. On the third is when you start fasting. So how do we understand this Mishnah? Says Rashi, She'afal pishul yarder geshamim, even though it hasn't started raining, lo b'rishayin v'lo b'shnei, not in the first or the second part where it's supposed to rain, lo himasanin el shoyim b'kashem astisin. It's a kasher Mishnah. Mishnah's mashma that you start fasting by Revi'ir Rishayna, but it's not true. You're not supposed to fast. You can be shayil. You ask Hashem for rain. That's it. So Rabbi Yehuda Havkarim. This is how you read the Mishnah. Seder Taanit Ha'omer Emasai B'zman Sheyatzu Revi Rishayna Shnei Shlishis V'lo Yarda Geshamim. It means that it didn't rain at all. Not the first, the second, the third, normal times it didn't rain. V'lo Yarda Geshamim Revi Rishayna. Let's say it did fall in the Revi Rishayna. However, it didn't rain completely the way we wanted to. For example, V'zar V'lo Tzamchu. Things change. Then you could immediately start fasting. That's only if there was a change. Let's say things it was dried up. The akun mahudatema akanta milsihi kamash malon. What's akoin? Says Rashi. She'olu b'kana, that it went up with these reeds. That these reeds came up a little bit after it was dry. So you would think that maybe that's milsihi, that's something, says Rashi. The hoyel v'niskanu ma'at, since the reeds grew a little bit, imispalel, if you daven moyelehem, it'll help. Kamash Mulan, Rav Nachman, the akne lav milsa. That actually means nothing, these reeds. Lashon acher, it's when it's dried, you don't do it because memela chayzrin. Okay. Let's look at question 3. Be'ez revia maschilim l'sanais im hagia zmana below yardu geshamim. And the answer is shlishis. Okay. All right. Let's continue by the 2 dots. V'chein sheposku geshamim ben gesh legeshem, for, as the Mishnah said, for a period of 40 days, then masrian miyad. So it says, because it's a makas b'tsaris. So my makas b'tsaris, Rabbi Yehuda Rav, it's referring to a makkah that maviality b'tsaris. It's a makkah which is going to lead to a food shortage. That's the problem. Rav Nachman, nahara anahara b'tsarta. Let's look in Rashi before we continue on Amud Beis. Nahara nahara, river to river. B'she'ein tevua b'ir achas. There's no grain in one city. V'yesh b'yaros acheros, but there is grain in another city. V'efshel havi mizel lazeh derech nahar b'sfina. And the way that you can get the grain from the city which has the grain to the city that doesn't have it is from a river. All right, so you can go on a boat and you can transport it from one city to the next. As we continue to Yud Testament Beis, we say that's b'tsorta. Says Rashi, b'tsirasu. That's considered to be still a time of anguish. V'lo rav. It's not considered to be a time of famine. Because you could always, again, get the things from a boat. However, medinata kafna. If the only way that you can get grain is you have to literally go from one country, one province to the other, and you need to have like donkey drivers to transport it, that is considered to be a kafna. That is considered to be a hunger. That will be much more difficult for a person to be able to transport these items. If, let's say, you have a saw worth of grain and it costs a sela, so since it's shchicha, since there's a lot of food, so b'tzarta, it's considered to be a b'tzairus. It's not on the level of a kafna, of a hunger, because it's shchicha, right? Even though it may be, it says Rashi Dehaini Yoiker, it may be expensive, but the reality is it's something which you're able to get. However, arba, v'lo shchicha kafna. Let's say you're able to get 4, which sounds like a better deal, but because it's not shchiach to get, it's great that it may be a good deal financially, but if you don't have the ability to get your hands on it, so it's a hunger. The only time we say this din is only a situation where the money is cheap and the fruit is expensive. If money is expensive, in other words, that people don't have any money, because if you don't have the money, you don't have the money. That's a problem. That I recall that it once happened. There was dalad soyim b'sela, v'havi nefishi nefichi kafon, but there were many bloated stomachs b'tveria, midaleis iser, because they had no money. So even if it's true that the cost may not be so great, it doesn't make any difference. The reality still is that it's a problem because you need, you won't be able to afford it. Okay, let's look at TA7 before we get too far ahead of ourselves. Ma habir nahara nahar b'tsurta, shnei bi'urim in Rashi. So this is on Yud Testament Aleph, Yud Testament Beis. So this is TA7. So as we mentioned, this is referring to a situation where you're able to get the food, even though you don't have it, if you go on a boat from one place to the next. That's considered to be bitsorta. That doesn't take upon itself the level of a famine. Says Dirshu's answer, it's referring to, what does it mean? O she'en tvua be'ir, either means that there's no grain in the city, srich l'havi derech nahar mayiros acheros, and you have to go through the river from one city to the next. Oh, another interpretation of Rashi, Chiyavesh Nahar Echad, that the river is all dried up. The Sarach L'Hasef Ma'ayin Acher, and you have to circumvent and go around some other waterway. O Shehimtin Shigadol Nahar Acher, or you have to maybe wait until there's more water coming up. So that obviously is a is a problem. Okay. Fine. So that is clearly one shot in Rashi. It says Shnei Biorim Barashi. If you look, that's what this girsa is over here on the second line in Rashi. It says Lashon Achar Nahar Nahara Im Yavish Ma'ayin Zeh V'Sarich L'Hasef Ma'ayin Acher Bikan Inami L'Hamtin Ad Sheyigdal Nahar Acheres V'Yabu Kan B'Tsaris Huzeh. Okay, that's one of those Rashis that can easily have been ignored, so it's an important one to not ignore. Okay, let's continue. So then the Mishnah said, Yardu L'Tzmachim Avalo L'Ilon, that if, let's say, the rains can affect certain things well, but not others, it's still a problem. So Bishlam L'Tzmachim Avalo L'Ilon Mishkach L'Yasanich Avalo L'Asirazia. If it's a light rain, that helps the sprouting, but doesn't help the trees. What rain is good for trees? If it comes very strong, that helps the trees because it goes deeper into the roots. But doesn't help the tzmachim, those things that are sprouting, which are not as deep. So sometimes there could be different types of levels of rain. It could be good for both. It was hard and soft rains, which helped the trees and the tzmachim. However, it wasn't enough to be able to fill up these pits. That it was enough to fill up these pits. There was enough to fill up these pits. That should have been enough to help these trees and everything else. The answer is, it's the asya, it's when the rain came down, like pouring down. So it came down so strong that it wasn't even helpful for the trees. Masriyan al ha'ilanois bifrais ha'pesach. That we start crying out regarding the issue of trees, bifrais ha'pesach. For us, which we've learned elsewhere, has to do with halfway of Pesach. Says Rashi, B'yamei Pesach al bayrash shichanu ma'aras im lo yardu lehem geshamim. If it hasn't rained, so then we have to start asking b'frais haPesach. Al baris shichanu ma'aras afil b'frais hachag. When it comes to the pits, even in the middle of Sukkot. Now, kulam im ein lehem mayim lishtais. If there's no water to drink, masul lehem miyad. Ve'ezu miyad sholahen. Shnei v'chamishi v'sheni. When it says immediately, it means you have to do the mahab. You, of course, have to start on Monday, because otherwise the sha'arim, the people who are in business, may take advantage of this. They'll think that there's a massive shortage, and they raise their prices. And all this, the masriyan, the crying out, let's call it again anenu, is only in that kingdom. The askra, however, when it comes to the plague of askra, which starts by the throat, and the person can die from this, as brought down in Masechta Shabbos, and different punishments, a very unusual death, one of the worst, most painful deaths. Bisman sheish b'misa, if people are dying from it, then you have to be masriyan immediately. However, bisman shein b'misa ein masriyan. It's totally if it's a death penalty, people are much dying from it. Masriyan al hagovoi b'chol shehu. And when it comes to gavoi, which is some type of grasshopper of sorts that's attacking the fields, even the smallest amount. So again, different types of species of grasshoppers and the like, which are going to consume all vegetation, and therefore it'll cause famine. There'll be no food. Tarnabanan. Masriyan al hilanois, you can be crying out for the lack of rain for trees, b'shar shnei shavua, on all the years. Al boris v'ashichan al boris afil b'shvius. Even in the Shemitah year, says Rashi, avol b'shmita lo de hefker. You can't cry out for the lack of rain for trees, because those trees are hefker anyway, those fruits on shvius. Shemigmil omer afal ilanos b'shvius neishesh behen parnasal aniyim. It's true, it's hefker for me, but the poor people rely on it. So therefore, according to Shmuel, even on Shemitah year, you could be asking Hashem for rain for the trees. Tani idach. We also learned similar to Bryce. Masriyan al ha'ilanois b'shar shnei Shavua v'al baris ha'shich v'al baris afil b'shvius. Again, Rabbi Shimon Gamaliel, no, afal ilanos masriyan. We also can crowd for trees. Not only that, al hasfichin, on the aftergrowths, you can also crowd b'shvius because that's also parnasa for the poor. Tan Yom Rabbi Elazar ben Parata. Miyom shechar Beis Hamikdash, from the time that the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, Nasr Geshamim Simukim L'Oilam. The rain came down. Simukim sounds almost like raisins. It means that they came down in an unusual way, different way, and it came with difficulty. Sometimes there's a lot of rain, sometimes there's not a lot of rain. Sometimes it comes at the right time, sometimes not the right time. When the rain comes in the proper time, it's comparable to the following. To a servant, he gets paid on Sunday. Nimsas isa naafes ketikuna, he's able to prepare his dough. Venecheles ketikuna, he's able to eat it properly. However, shana shein geshemel yardim izmanan, it happens a little bit late. So he gets all his money on Friday and he starts scrambling to buy food. Nimsas isa naafes shlo ketikuna, he wasn't able to prepare the dough properly. Venecheles shlo ketikna, he wasn't able to eat it properly. If the rain is not so much, it's he gets all of his money in one shot. The millstones are ground, minakor, mashetachanois minakav. The nimsas isa ichelos minakor, kamo yachelos minakav. So it's a good thing. If there's not a lot of rain, he gets paid small increments, just like little drops of rain. We find regarding to these grinders, these stones, that which you grind minakor, tochanos minakav. So basically what this means is some of the dough gets lost in the process of making bread. And therefore it gets lost in the machine. So it's better to do it all in one time. If you do it all in one time, so there's a certain amount, every time you make the dough, there's a little bit of dough, a little bit that gets lost. But if you did a massive quantity, so that's not a big deal. But if you have to keep doing it over and over and over, every single time you do it over and over and over, you're losing, which is a lot more significant. So therefore it's better to get it all in one shot. A person who is like preparing and mixing this like mud or like cement. If you have a lot of water, then it's not going to the water is not going to be proper. But because of that, it's not going to end up causing. It will end up drying up, basically, and therefore everything will be fine. However, if you don't have a lot of water, the water basically will evaporate. It won't mix properly. Tanaman. They had no water. So Holach, here's a very famous story. It's actually going to take us deep into Chaf Amud Aleph. Nakdim ben Gurion, the famous story of Nakdim ben Gurion. Eitzel Aden Echad Omerlo Halveni Shtem Eser Mayanais Mayim. Everything is 12. Give me 12 springs of water. Ole Regolim. Yanietin Locha Shtem Eser Enos Mayim. I'll pay you back. If I don't give you the water back, I'm going to give you tons of money. 12 talents of silver. The Kaval Zman, he said a certain time that the loan would be due. He said to him, Shagrli o maim o mais, give me my water, give me money. So Sheshli biadcho, it's in your hands. Shalcha dain yeshli zman. I still have time. Kol hayoyim kulo shlihu, it's mine. I still have the whole day. But Sarayim in the afternoon, Shalachlo Shagaliu Maimu Mois, Sheshel Biyadcha, Shalachlo Adain Yeshli, Shois Beyoim. I still have time. The Mincha Shalachlo Shagaliu Maimu Mois, Sheshel Biyadcha, Shalachlo Adain Yeshli, Shois Beyom. I still have a couple hours left. I have a little bit of time. At this point, this master started laughing and scoffing. Nagdim Ben Gurion, the entire year it hasn't rained, so obviously you probably don't have any water to show for yourself, which obviously means probably, as we continue Chaf Amud Aleph, the Akshav Yarding Geshamim. You think now it's going to rain? Says Rashi Bitmia. He went to the bathhouse and he got a nice relaxing time in the jacuzzi, waiting to get his massive payday coming in a few minutes. As he was enjoying himself in the bathhouse, Nakdiman went and he connected to spirituality. When he was upset, and he was davening. I didn't do this for my own honor to get this water. I want to make sure there was water for people that would come to your house, to the base of Mikdash. If it wasn't for that, no one would come. So I did it for your honor, Hashem. The clouds got thick. And it started pouring. Until it was all filled with water. It was even extra. Nakdim Ben Gurion Yatzim Bebeis Hamikdash, and they counted each other. So he said, you know what? You should give me some water. I know that Hashem would not have turned over the world like this, only because of you. You should still have to pay me. It's already sunset. The rain fell in my rishus. You're a few seconds too late. It started pouring only after it was dark. So he davened. Show that you have people that you love in this world. The clouds dispersed. It was really not sunset, or maybe it was, we'll see. And all of a sudden the sun shone. If it wasn't that the sun was shining, I would have this claim against you. About taking your money. His name was actually Buni. And we're going to stop with these next three words. That the sun pierced through in his honor. Okay, we're going to stop there. And we'll talk more about other people who did miraculous things with the sun. We'll see that on tomorrow's daf. I already went maybe a little bit deeper than I should have. Okay, that was, let's see, we saw the questions there. Let's turn to let's see, we did TA7. Is there, let's see, question 8. Okay, we didn't do that one yet. Question TB8. Miamasai Masrian al Shol Yardu Geshomim Liulanois. He Masrian al Choili Haaskra. That's a hard question. I got it completely wrong. This 2-part question. So the first question is, when do we start being Masrian and when it comes to rain regarding trees? So he says Bifrois HaPesach, halfway through Pesach, and the only time that a person is supposed to deal with the chayil askara, the illness of the stomach, is bizman sheshel misa, if it actually is killing people. If the askara is not killing people, then we are not masriyan aleha. Adkan.